That leads to functional behavior assessment. I'm not here to talk about functional behavior assessment, just functions of behavior. So FBA, the process of it, for those of you who aren't aware, it's a diagnostic protocol. It's a set of procedures you go through to diagnose the function of problem behavior, to answer the question, WTF. So you identify the behaviors of concern, any setting events that might set the stage for but not trigger the behavior, the actual triggers, and then the things that are maintaining the behavior in terms of consequences. That's what we do with our functional behavior assessment process. The point of this process is to figure out what is it eating, and the point of the process is to answer the question, what's the function? I like to conceptualize the functional behavior assessment process as funnel-shaped. Right? You start at the top with less precision, you gather information, you develop hypotheses, then we go in and we directly observe to see if we can verify our hypotheses. We might even manipulate, which isn't included here, we call that functional analysis. And at the bottom of the process, we spit out function. We have to have function. So, functions of behavior. Behavior serves a function or a purpose for the individual engaging in it, period, full stop. Right? That's the gospel truth. It's critical that we have this as an operating assumption. Functional behavior assessment assists in identifying the function, or sometimes plural, functions of problem behavior in specific contexts, which is also very important to recognize, because one problem behavior, let's say hitting, can be eating a certain function in one setting and be serving a totally different function in another setting with a different individual, right? Which is why we don't treat the presentation of behavior, the topography. Right? I don't treat hitting, I treat hitting maintained by X, hitting maintained by Y. If you're only focused on the problem, you're missing half the picture. I need to know how it's working for him. So there are 4 functions of behavior. Tangible, which is problem behavior to get something. On the videos you saw this morning, there is problem behavior to get the swing. There's problem behavior to get the green game piece. Those are problem behaviors maintained by tangible. There's attention, which is different from getting a thing that's getting attention. And beggars can't be choosers. This doesn't mean positive, nice attention. It can be any attention. And then getting out of something, escape. Right? And escape is a huge function in a school setting because the primary focus of school is to present demands and for students to respond to demands. It's an inherently demand-heavy setting, so there's a lot of escape in school settings. And then finally, what we refer to as automatic reinforcement, which is behavior that occurs because it feels good in the individual's nervous system for it to occur. Some people will refer to this as sensory-based behaviors. It just feels good. I added, it's not in your handout here, but I was thinking about this. Sometimes people say, well, what about control? Is control a function of behavior? Because if you describe a student to me where the function of behavior seems to be control, when you say that, I have a sense of what you're thinking, because I know some of these kids. I know the control child, right? But control isn't one of the 4 functions of behavior. If you think about control parsimoniously and simplistically, it's either that they're trying to get what they want, which is the tangible, or avoid certain things in their schedule, or dictate activities, right? All of this dictating of things is either there's elements of attention, but there's elements of tangible, there's elements of escape. So really, control can be parsed down into the existing 4 functions. I had a phone call with a principal up north last year, and he said, Richard, I need help with a student. I said, well, you know what I'm going to start with, right? We're going to start with, we need to do functional assessment. We need to figure out what's the function of this problem behavior. He goes, I'm way ahead of you. We've determined the function. The function's chaos seeking. I totally love that, chaos seeking. Unfortunately, it's not a function of behavior, right? That's not a function of behavior. But you get the idea. This was a student where if anything was going well, it's like he had to be bad because he was just more comfortable in a state of perpetual chaos. And with a bit more kind of investigation, we discovered that in his home life, it was highly chaotic from the moment of birth, right? Multiple children in the family from multiple different parents and different custody and drug abuse and all sorts of things going on. This was his normal, right? Chaos was his normal. And then we had to see how does that fit over the school setting. So I like the phrase chaos seeking, but it's not a function of behavior. So let me run you through some examples of escape. When a teacher asks Kent to read out loud in class, he swears. The teacher sends him to sit in the hallway, seems appropriate. Kent swears more often than he used to in this situation, which means sending him to the hallway is allowing him to get out of what he didn't want to do, escape. When her SEA asks her to put away her lunch bag and garbage, Tess sits on the floor, refuses to get up. Her SEA does not ask her to do it again and will put her stuff away for her. Tess is sitting on the floor more often than she used to, right? In the place of a demand, there's problem behavior. She doesn't have to follow through with the demand. Cute cartoon. The principal suspended me. School's the only place in the world where you can get time off for bad behavior. The Principal just went to reaction, right, which would have made sense to him or her, right, but it ignores what's the function. Attention, when the class is doing independent seat work, Allison pokes students sitting nearby and makes silly faces. When she does this, the student tells her to stop, and the SEA comes over and sits with Allison. Allison is now poking students and making silly faces more than ever because the peers provide attention, and an SEA comes over and parks right beside her with 100% attention. Right? So from a functional perspective, this is why she's doing it. This is what's maintaining it. This is what's feeding the beast. In the hallway between classes, Thomas tells dirty jokes. Over time, and the students laugh, of course. Over time, he's telling dirtier and dirtier jokes. What's maintaining this? The peer attention, their laughter. Tangible, when Jennifer is asked to stop using her iPad, she screams. Her SEA usually allows her to use the iPad for just a few more minutes, then when she's ready, Jennifer's now screaming more and more often when asked to turn off her iPad. Because screaming allows her to keep her iPad. That's tangible. When Jack's teacher tells the class to put their basketballs away at the end of gym class, Jack takes his ball and runs to the other side of the room. Jack's teacher usually lets him continue to play with his basketball while the rest of the class clean up. Jack is now running to the other side of the gym more often in that same circumstance because he's getting something. He's getting a tangible in that case. And then for automatic, when Roxanne has nothing to do and no one to interact with, she makes noises and flaps her hands. No one responds when she does this, no attention. This happens more than it used to when she has nothing to do and no one around. So there's no demands to escape from. There's no attention to get. There's no tangible to get. Right? There's poverty of reinforcement, in other words. And she creates her own enjoyment, her own pleasure in her nervous system by engaging in these behaviors maintained by automatic positive reinforcement. A different type of example, after solving a few difficult math problems, Garrett rubs his eyes and rocks back and forth quietly in his seat for a minute. No one notices him, and after a minute, he goes back to work. He's now rubbing his eyes and rocking more than he used to in this situation. So that doesn't even present as a problem behavior necessarily. It might present as a self-soothing behavior, right? But it's maintained by automatic reinforcement because there was no escape, there was no tangible, there was no attention.